Hello again, I'm Bob Weir with the Cross Timbers Gazette, and my guest today is Tom Mechler, Chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Mr. Mechler, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the chance to be with you.
On March 7th of this year in Austin, you were chosen by the Republican State Executive Committee to succeed Steve Munisteri. You were going to fill his unexpired term, and he resigned in 2010. Can you tell those who may not know, what is the role of the state party chairman?
Yeah, and just as a point of clarity, he was elected in 2010. He and I actually ran against each other at the 2010 state convention, and I became his treasurer. The state chairman is the person who leads the party in terms of directing the executive staff and setting the vision of where we're going as a party for the state of Texas. Also, I chair the state executive committee when it's in session, which occurs once a quarter, and am responsible for raising the funds to operate the state party, and also in the voice of the party for the Republicans throughout the state of Texas.
Let me ask you about a news story regarding an email with Jeb Bush's signature that came from the state GOP. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, and that email occurred probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, first part of September. There was some confusion that came from that. They thought, some individuals thought that the party had endorsed Jeb Bush. That's not the case. The state Republican Party, specifically by its bylaws, does not get involved in contested primaries. So we were not trying to take a position. What that was that candidate had agreed to sign something to help us raise money. And we have reached out to several of the presidential campaigns asking them for the same favor to us. There was no payment made to him or vice versa. There wasn't any kind of transaction like that, but it was, they would sign an email. So we've now reached out to other presidential candidates, asked them to sign emails that we could use for fundraising for the state party. Again, emphasizing that we're not endorsing in the presidential campaign. It's just a chance for them to say, hey, if you're one of my supporters, please help the Republican Party of Texas. And that's how we've done that.
I see. All right, in accordance with the rules approved by the Republican National Committee, Texas will be the first large state to vote in the presidential primary on March 1st. Can you tell us why that's important?
Well, it's particularly important for several reasons. Now, we did have 6 candidates running for president that had a tie to Texas. Now, Governor Perry, of course, is no longer in the race, so now there's 5. But the biggest part of that is because we're such a large state, the most Republican of all the Republican states, we have 155 delegates, which is only surpassed by California in terms of the number of delegates that will be present and voting at the national convention. So that's a large prize, and we've told the candidates we hope that they all come to Texas and they spend a lot of money here while they're campaigning.
And there is, I understand there is not a winner-take-all provision in the primary, right?
That's correct. It's allocated.
Allocated.
And it's going to be allocated based on the results of the March 1st primary that you mentioned. Those delegates will actually, the individuals themselves will be selected at the state convention, which is the second week of May of 2016. But the individuals who are selected as delegates will be bound according to the primary results as to who they must vote for at the national convention.
All right. Now, when you were elected to your current position, you pledged, among other things, to prioritize minority outreach, which you referred to as absolutely essential to the future of the party. How do you plan to put that outreach into effect?
Yeah, and I don't call it, our party has basically changed the way we describe it, not as outreach. We're not trying to reach out to somebody. We are in the process of engaging the minority communities into the party. We already have a presence in the minority communities. Our party represents, I believe, very strongly represents the values of minority communities. They're an important part of our future. Certainly that's true because Texas is now a majority minority state. Collectively, if you add up all the minorities, that's larger than the Anglo population, is what that means. And so the future of our party will be based on our ability to bring those communities in to the Republican Party. And the minority communities, as I've told, I've spoken 60 times throughout the state of Texas since I've been chairman for 6 months. And as I've reached out to these different organizations that I've spoke at, I've said, what do we have to give up to bring them in? We give nothing up because our party is already conservative and those communities are very conservative. So it's really more of an ability on our part to convey the message of who we are and what we believe, and we believe that will ring true to those communities, and they'll feel like they really are a part of the Republican Party because we represent their values.
All right, how about the infighting between establishment Republicans and members of the Tea Party? Do you have a strategy for resolving that conflict?
Well, and I want to be careful we don't overstate, we call it infighting. I think that there's a lot of passionate people in our party. Certainly that's the case. As state chairman, excuse me, as state chairman, my position is that the Republican Party represents all Republicans throughout the state. And it's important for all Republicans to feel like that they have a place at the table with us as a party. And so it's a matter of making sure that one of the things that I've gone around the state, I've spoken a lot about unity, the importance of respecting other people's opinion. It's very important that people have the ability to speak and we respect one another, but the party itself cannot be controlled by one small group. It's got to be opened up. To be successful as a party, we've got to represent all Republicans throughout the state of Texas. And I work on that every single day as the state chairman to make sure everybody feels like they have a place at the table.
All right, how does the state Republican Party work to get candidates elected?
Well, the party itself, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we don't get involved in the primary elections.
Right.
It's very important. Our bylaws prohibit us from doing that. And so we stay out of primary elections. But once a candidate is selected as a result of the primary, they become the Republican nominee for whatever position. Then the party will work in assistance with them to get elected in November. Now, in some cases, the incumbents are probably going to have an easier time than a challenger against a Democrat. And we will provide resources, a variety of resources. In some cases, those are mail pieces. A lot of times, we have a lot of boots on the ground. We knock on doors. We make millions of phone calls in support of them. The party's role, I've kind of described it when I'm talking about the difference between, is football as an example. Most of us love football. We love the play where the quarterback takes a snap, throws a long pass into the end zone, the receiver catches, makes a touchdown, we all get excited. But if it's not for blocking and tackling on that front line, that play can't help it, cannot happen. And that's what the party does. The Republican Party's role is doing the blocking and tackling and basically helping those candidates to be able to be successful. That's what we spend every single day working on.
And what about the party spending money on candidates? How's that determined? I mean, once a candidate is selected in the primary, and then we're into the general election, how do you spend money on the candidates?
Well,
by television ads and...
Yeah, we can do some of that, the television ads. Usually what will entail, we'll certainly work with them with respect to their mail pieces. Sometimes they come to us and say, would you help us with a mail piece? Will you mail that out? Will you help us with phone banks? We do that. We have the volunteers. We have thousands of volunteers around the state of Texas. We have phone banks in our victory centers, which is basically nothing more than a large number of phones around tables that we have volunteers sit at and make phone calls on behalf of candidates. But we also, in some cases, will do things that will be helpful to particular candidates, but usually what it is in-kind type support.
Can you tell us how does a person contribute to the party? Is there a place that they go online, for example?
Yes, and we send out mail pieces, we make phone calls, but the best way that someone could contribute to help us, and which we greatly appreciate because it takes a lot of money, as you would imagine, to run a party, is to go to texasgop.org. So it's TEXASGOP.org, and they can make a contribution either with a credit card or using a bank draft.
Excellent. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up. I want to thank you again, Chairman Mechler, for taking the time to be here and for all you do for the Texas Republican Party. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching.